Hey guys, so as promised, today I'm going over part two of functions, and in this part, I'm going to talk about functions with a return value. So as you can see in the notes, it says functions can return a value that can be reused by the rest of the program, instead of just printing something to the screen. So basically, sometimes what you'll want your function to do is return some kind of value or give you back a value so that you can take that value and reuse it in the rest of your program. In fact, most of the time you'll want functions that do that because printing something to the screen is not very useful most of the time. And when you have a complex program, you're most likely going to want to use information that you get from a function rather than just printing it to the screen. So in order to do that, you need a return statement. And a return statement basically consists of two things: the return keyword and the value or expression that the function should return. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to do a few examples just so you could see how useful the return function is. Okay, so let's do this. Let's write a function that that finds a radius of a circle given the diameter. Okay, pretty straightforward, just to practice. Okay, so nothing changes as far as how we write our function. Okay, we're gonna start by defining our function. Now, this function is taking a diameter and then just giving us the radius of a circle. So we can just call it maybe radius finder. Okay, I think that's a pretty good name for that. So our function is called radius finder, and it's going to take a parameter. I'm going to call it d for diameter. Okay, so our function is radius finder, and it's going to take on some kind of diameter, some value that's the diameter, and then we're going to just find the radius. Now, the math is pretty straightforward, right? So in order to find the radius, we'll just do the diameter divided by 2. So normally we might do something like this. Okay, now this is just going to print the diameter divided by 2, which is obviously the radius. So this is fine. When we try it out, we can actually call our function radius finder, and I'm just going to put a diameter of 20 and see what happens here when I run. Okay, so notice when I ran that, it gave me a 10 because it took the 20 and it divided it by 2. So it's doing the right thing, okay? But all it's doing is printing to the screen. So maybe that's not what I want it to do. Maybe I want to use the 10 in this case and find the area of that circle, for example. So in that case, you wouldn't want your function to just print the radius. You would want it to return the radius. So what you could do is, instead of having it print something, you could have it return something. Okay? So if I change this to return d over 2, that's going to spit back a value so that the user can use that value for something else. Now, if you don't like this, you could do like an intermediate variable and just say r equals d divided by 2, and then you could return r. So if you like that better, feel free to do that, whatever works for you. Now, if I try to actually call my function again and call it on, let's say 30 for now, if I try to run that, notice that nothing happens, okay? So that's a little bit weird because we have it returning the radius, but it's actually not showing it. And that's because return is not the same thing as print. Okay, what the return is going to do is it's going to spit back a value. But in order to kind of save that value somewhere, we're going to need a variable to hold that variable. Okay, so we could add that note. So when using return in a function, you will need a variable in which to save the information. Okay, So I'll explain that. So what we're going to have to do is something like this. So this is returning the radius. Because it's returning a value, that means that when we call our function, we need to save the return value somewhere. So we could do this. Radius1 equals radius finder 30. So what's going to happen here, what this syntax is saying, it's saying evaluate the return value for radius finder 30. So that's going to do 30 divided by 2, that's 15. So it's going to return 15. So this whole thing right here evaluates to 15. And what's going to happen is that 15 is going to get saved in whatever variable you decide. So in this case, I decided to call my variable radius1. So the 15 is being saved in radius1. And then if I really want to see that on the screen, I can just print radius1. Okay? And there you go. It saved my 15. Now if I change this value, you know, it should give me the correct radius each time. Let's see. How about if I do something like 21? 10.5. Perfect. Okay? So basically what I'm trying to say is that whenever you use the return, you do need a variable to save that information somewhere. Okay? And that's what I was trying to say when I wrote this. When using return in a function, you will need a variable in which to save the information. Okay? So that's where this came from. I declared and initialized a variable called radius1 to the return value of radius finder 22. Okay? So that's it. That's basically what you do when you have a function that returns something. Okay? And this is useful because now I could do any math I want with radius1, right? So I could do something like this. Area1 now is here, actually let's do this. Let's say I have two circles, right? So I would say radius1 is radius finder 22, radius2 is radius finder, and let's say that circle has a diameter of 40, right? And then that means that area1 is going to be pi 3.14. Actually, let's import math. So from math, import star. Okay, now I can use pi. So pi times, and now I could do this, radius1 squared. Okay, and then area 2, I could do pi times radius 2 squared. Okay, and then I could print area 1 and print area 2. So let's run this and make sure it works. Okay, so take a look at this. My area 1 is 380.132. My area 2 is 1256.637. Okay, so see what I did here is I found my radius 1 and I found my radius 2. So the first radius was the radius of a circle with diameter 22. The second radius was the radius of a circle with diameter 40. Those two radii were saved in the variables radius 1 and radius 2. And then I found the area using those values. So if I had just used print instead of return, I wouldn't have been able to do the area math, because when you print something to the screen, that information just appears on the screen. It doesn't get saved anywhere. So you technically lose those values. So if you ever want to reuse values, you should use return rather than print. Okay? And what we could do actually is we can make this program more sophisticated. So instead of having to type out the area, we could write a program, we could write a function for area of a circle, and then apply it inside a loop. So let's do something more interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna actually comment this out, and I'm gonna bring this function down here. Okay, so this is let's put some comments. So this is a function that finds the radius of a circle given the diameter. Okay, and let's write a function that finds the area of a circle given the radius. Okay, so let's see, df, I'm going to call it circle area, and it's given the radius, so I'm going to type out radius. Now, actually, I can actually reuse r, okay? So you see how there's an r here and an r here? Well, this r technically is a local variable, okay? And I'm going to talk more about local and global variables later, probably in a different video. But because this r is inside the function, that means it's a local variable, so I can actually reuse the variable, and this r have nothing to do with each other because this r is just related to my radius finder function, and this r is just related to my circle area function. Okay, so just a quick kind of tip here, but like I said, I will come up with another video probably to discuss in more detail the difference between local and global, and you know, some important details about that. Okay, so this circle area function takes a radius and then it finds the area. So let's see, area equals, and we know that the area of a circle is pi r squared, so I can use pi because I imported my math library. So pi times r squared, right? Okay, and then instead of printing, we're going to return the area. Okay, and you can leave out the parentheses or you can include the parentheses. It's up to you. All right, good. So look at this. I have two functions, one that takes the diameter, divides it into, returns the radius, and one that takes the radius and finds the area of a circle using the radius. Perfect. Okay. So now let's write a full program that uses both of these functions so we could see how we could put it all together. Okay, so let's do a loop. Okay, so let's ask the user how many circles they have. So circle number equals input, how many circles do you have? And we're going to need to typecast as an int because this is going to be an integer answer. Okay, so the user will get to tell us how many circles they have. Okay, and let's write a loop that repeats as many times as there are circles. So we can use a while loop, but since we used a while loop before in the first video, I'm going to use a for loop. Okay, so write a for loop that repeats as many times as there are circles. Okay, so let's see if we remember how to write a for loop. Okay, so for I in range, now if the user has 5 circles, let's say, right? So if the user has 5 circles, if we put 5, let's see, do we remember how many times this will repeat? 1 second. For the range function, let's see. Yeah, so I think, sorry, not 5. We don't want this to repeat 5. We need this to repeat a circle number of times, right? So this should be fine. Okay, we'll test it out, make sure. But for I in range circle number, so this is how many times the loop is gonna repeat, and that's based on the user's input of how many circles they have. Okay, so for each time, we're gonna ask them what the diameter is, right? So let's ask them that question. So D equals input, what is the diameter? Or let's say enter the diameter. Okay, now again, I'm gonna need to typecast Let's typecast as a float just in case the diameter is a decimal. Okay, so they're going to enter a diameter. Now, if we want to find the area of that circle, we're going to need the radius. So what we could do is we could do this. R equals radius finder, and we're going to pass on D to radius finder. And once we find the radius finder, we're saving it in a variable called radius. So actually, let me use some clearer variables. It's a little bit better. Okay, so that means that we have to change this to diameter. Okay, so we're gonna now take the radius and pass it on to our circle area function. So then we're gonna say area equals circle area and pass on radius to that. Okay, and then we could print something like this. The area of your circle is, and that's going to give us the area. And that should be good, I think. We have an error. Line 42. What am I forgetting here? Oh. I had parentheses here by accident. I think, yep, that's good. Okay, sorry guys. I've just been mixing things up because I'm also teaching Java, so I keep mixing the two languages up. It's kind of hard to be teaching two languages at the same time because I get the syntax mixed up. Because in Java for loops, right after the for you need parentheses, so that's why I had that on there. Hopefully you guys won't be making my mistakes because you're only learning Python for now. Okay, let's run this and see. Okay, so how many circles do you have? So I'm going to make it easy and just say 2. Okay, so enter the diameter. Okay, let's say 20. The area of your circle is, oh, we forgot the most important part, which is to actually print out the area. All right, I'm going to run this again. How many circles do you have? Let's say 2. Okay, let's say my diameter was 30. Let's typecast the area. That's why I got that error. Okay, I'm a little bit rusty tonight, I guess. Okay, oh. How many circles do you have? 2. Okay, the diameter is 30. I'm gonna just check that real quick. So diameter is 30, which means the radius is 15, so 3.14 times 15 squared. 706 looks right. Perfect. And then let's say my second diameter was 20. Let's see. So double checking this answer. Okay, perfect. Both of those answers are perfect. And notice this ran twice. Now I can make this look a little bit better by adding some lines in between. So I'm just gonna add a blank. Okay, and then let's make this a little bit more sophisticated. So enter the diameter for circle number. Okay, now I wanted to say number 1, so I'm going to say circle number. And then add a colon. Okay, let me run that, see if it looks good. How many circles do you have? 2. Oh, typecast. Keep forgetting to do that. Again, I'm forgetting the typecasting because you don't have to do that in Java. Okay. Sorry, not circle number. That doesn't make sense. We're gonna do string I because I is gonna go from 1 to whatever the circle number was. Okay, so how many circles do you have? 2. Okay, enter the diameter for circle 0. So that's fine. I'm gonna do this I plus 1. Let's try again. 2. Okay, perfect. So see now it says enter the diameter for circle number 1. I had to do I plus 1 because I in range circle number just means it's going from 0 up to circle number, but not including circle number. So it's always one behind. Okay, we've talked about this before. And then what I could do is I could do the same thing here. The area of circle, and I'm going to add the number I plus 1 is, okay, just need to fix some things. Just get rid of it. The area of circle number, there we go. All right, I'm gonna run this again and see if this looks good. Okay, let's say I have 3 circles. Enter the diameter of circle 1, 20. Okay, perfect. It gives me, I don't really like the way my output looks. So, you know, you're gonna have to go back and fix some things. That's normal until you're happy with the output, but those are minor issues. I just like to kind of run things and then fix, run and fix. That way I'm not stuck fixing a bunch of things at the end. Okay, so enter the diameter for circle 1, let's say 20. Okay, see, I don't like the output here. It says the area of circle number 1 is, and then after the is, there's not a lot of space. So that means I have to put a space over here. Okay, let's run this again. 3 circles. Enter the diameter of circle 1, so let's say 20. All right, very nice. Enter the diameter for circle 2, let's say 30. Okay, perfect. Enter the diameter for circle 3. And look at that. So look at how I automated this whole process. And look at how easy that was. It was literally just having 2 functions and a loop. And now I can literally find the diameter and area. Sorry, I can find the radius and area of any circle I want. Granted, I didn't print out the radius, but I did end up using the radius to find my area, right? I could technically print out the radius if I wanted the user to see the radius. We could do that actually. Let's do that. So after they enter the diameter, let's print it here. Or we could just do our printing all down here. Print the radius of circle number plus, okay, str I plus 1 plus is plus str radius. Okay, let's see now. Let's say we only have 2 circles here. Diameter 30. So look, enter the diameter for circle 1. Okay, so it says that radius of circle number 1 is 15. The area of circle number 1 is, and then it gives us the area. Enter the diameter for circle 2. So let's say the diameter was 44. The radius of circle number 2 is 22, and then the area of circle number 2 is 1,520. Okay, so now I'm happy with the final result, because the final result gives me the radius and then gives me the area of that circle. And then it tells me which circle I'm talking about. So this is a nice, thorough output, and I expect you guys to start making your outputs more thorough. And keep in mind that you want things to be readable, so add a lot of spaces, make sure things aren't stuck together. If there should be spaces between a colon and, you know, a value, make sure you put extra spaces. It's always good to make your program more readable. Okay, you have to think about that once you start programming things that users will be interacting with. But back to this program. So notice all we needed were 2 functions, 1 function to find the radius and 1 function to find the area. And then we used a loop to utilize those 2 functions to come up with the radius and area of as many circles as the user wanted. Okay, so very powerful things here, and we were able to do all that because we used functions that return values. And so anytime I called my radius finder, I had to save that in a variable called radius. And then I took that variable, my radius, and I applied it as a parameter or argument in my circle area function. So you see here how important it was that my radius finder didn't just print something to the screen, but it instead returned a value that I was able to save and reuse to run through my circle area function to get my area. Okay, I hope I'm making sense here. These are all new things we're doing, but it takes some practice, but I'm trying to be as thorough as possible. Okay, very good. Let's comment things out. Comment all that out. And let's do one more function. Let's see what I have here. Okay. So here's what I want us to do next. Write a program that mimics, is this how you spell mimics? I don't think there's a K. Write a program that mimics a magic 8-ball, okay? So basically, I want a program that returns some kind of answer, right? So a magic 8-ball, you're supposed to kind of ask it a question and then shake the ball and then you'll get some kind of answer. And the question you ask should be a yes or no question, right? And then you shake the ball and you get this random answer, and that's supposed to answer your question. So that's what we're going to do. But because it's mimicking a magic 8-ball, it's going to be pseudo-random. So not fully 100% random, but it's going to mimic a random answer. Okay, but before we talk about the randomness, let's just kind of design a function that just returns answers, random answers, okay, or answers that we pre-made answers, basically, is what I want to say. Okay, so we are going to need random later. So what I'm going to do is from random import star, because we will be using random later, so might as well just import it now. And you know what? While we're at it, just in case, let's import math. Okay. So let's create a function. So create a function for magic 8-ball. All right. So def, and we could call it magic 8-ball, but I'm gonna call it get answer because it's gonna get you an answer. Okay, and we're gonna have this function take on some kind of a number. So I'm gonna call that number. Okay, and then we're gonna use a bunch of conditionals, and you'll see where I'm going with this in a little bit. If number equals 1, okay, we're gonna return it is certain. Okay, elif number equals 2, we're gonna return. So you see now where I'm going. I'm just coming up with random responses. Let's say yes. Elif number equals 3, let's return no. You could come up with more interesting answers if you want, but just coming up with things that come to mind. If number equals 4, return reply is hazy. Try again, just to make things more interesting. Elif number equals 4, return it's not looking good. Okay. Elif number, we'll keep going until 9. 5, return let's say never, elif number equals 6, return for sure, elif number equals 7. I'm running out of ways to say yes and no. Return, let's see, it is certain, yes, no, replies hazy, try again, it's not looking good, never for sure. Let's see, it is decidedly so. Getting fancy here. If number equals 8, return not in a million years. Elif number equals 9, return maybe. All right. Okay, so we have all these, we have it returning these strings actually. So this function doesn't return, well, it returns values, but these values are just a bunch of strings, and it just depends on what number gets passed on to this function. Now, you might be wondering, why did I create this in a way that I have to pass on a number? Okay, well, what I was thinking is, because this is going to mimic a magic 8 ball, which is technically random, you know, you just shake the ball and then you get some random answer, we're going to mimic that by randomly picking a number from 1 through 9. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So if I have the computer randomly pick a number between 1 and 9 and then pass it on to my function, then that would kind of mimic the fact that I'm getting a random answer each time. Okay? All right, perfect. So let's create the random part. Okay? So I'm going to say r equals, and r is for random, rand int. So we want this number to be between 1 and 9. Okay? So I believe I went over rand int in my other videos. Remember, this is going to generate a random integer between the starting value and the end value, including both, right? We could test it out by printing r, but let me show you. Run that. Yep, so it's printing 5, 9, 5, 5, 5 again, 3, 4, 7. Okay, so as you can see, it's printing a random integer between 1 and 9 each time. Okay, perfect. So now r is going to have some random integer between 1 and 9. And so I'm going to take r and run it through my get answer. But this is returning values, so I have to save my answer in a variable. So I'm going to save it in a variable called answer. And I'm going to do answer equals get answer and then run r through it. Okay, so now answer is going to hold one of these strings. Maybe, not in a million years, for sure, never, it is decidedly so, it's not looking good, replies hazy. So it's going to have one of these answers, because this is what this function is returning, these strings, right? Now if I run this, nothing will happen because I'm printing to the screen. So actually, let's make this like we're going to interact with the user. So question equals input, enter your question, and I will answer it for you. Okay, so they'll enter their question, and this is just mimicking the fact that the user will be asking a question, so this is not going to affect anything. It's just to make it look like we're answering the user's question. And then we're going to print the answer. Okay, and the answer we got over here, I mean, if it makes you feel better, we could take these and put them right after the question as if we're coming up with the answer after we ask the question. Okay, but either way, we're going to be able to answer their question. So I'm going to run this. Enter your question and I will answer it for you. So let's see. Will I pass computer science? Okay, enter. And then that's funny. The answer that I got, it says not in a million years. Okay, run it again. enter your question and I will answer it for you. Will we go back to school this year with everything that's going on? Let's see what the computer thinks. The computer thinks yes. Okay, interesting. So, you know, this is pretty cool because it's mimicking the Magic 8 Ball, but all we're doing is just basically generating a number between 1 and 9, and depending on my conditional, depending on what that number is, it's giving me an answer, right? So, you know, it doesn't matter what you ask it, it's going to be a random answer. So we could ask one more just to show you. Let's see. Is Mr. Curcio smarter than Miss Ghazali? Let's see. Enter. For sure. Okay, so as you can see, this is very random and not accurate. So just kind of cool, you know, to go through this and try it out. Maybe you want to show it to your family or ask some family members to play along and ask them a question and show them what you came up with. And feel free to change some of these answers so that they're more interesting, but they do have to be yes or no. We're not that sophisticated in this program, so you have to make your questions all yes or no. Okay? So that's my video on functions part 2 using the return statement. Like I said, I will do another video focusing on local and global variables. I don't want to kind of throw information at you, so that's why I'm splitting these up, but hopefully this is helping. After you're done watching, let me know what you think. Alright guys, I'll see you later.